So, good morning everyone. Just a little bit later this morning, but hopefully before anyone has to shoot off, get ready for church on this Sunday morning. I keep promising I'm going to try and be quick as we we do these. I do want to be short this morning, and in many ways slightly different this morning. It kind of came as a response actually to what happened to me yesterday. So after I'd recorded this, I went back later to see if anyone was watching. We all have those those needs to be affirmed on social media, and it popped up on my timeline because I've been off Facebook for over a year. Got a little notification popped up that it was Dave Morris's birthday. Oh, I've just realised that I have not plugged my microphone in. So while I mess around, hopefully you've heard so far everything I've said. And now the sound hopefully is a little bit clearer. So anyway, I was just saying, yesterday popped up that it was Dave Morris's birthday. And Dave is a man that I always remember now as the name Rock Solid Dave. But I hadn't been on social media for a while and I didn't know what was going on with his life. I wanted to wish him a happy birthday, popped along to his timeline, only to see that he died last year. And he was an older man, and it's not, in one sense, a huge surprise, but it was one of those kind of shocks when, it comes out of the blue. You hadn't known. But some of you may know the name or remember the name, because I've told some of his story a little bit, certainly in my book, Supernatural Hope. And I just wanted to give it again as a testimony, really, because for me, it was a remarkable story, and it was one of those sad situations where I also saw people get very cynical about things too. But Dave, as a young man, he had quite a tough upbringing, and he coming into he'd been through the army and other things, but he'd had some quite an abusive kind of background, and he had a kind of slight shake to him. He ended up as a pub landlord, and in that context, he also then developed Parkinson's. And so people started to refer to him as Shaky Dave. He was known as Shaky Dave around town and through his pub work and so on. And his Parkinson's got so severe he had to stop working, and his partner left him. He turned up, a friend brought him, or a contact brought him to an Alpha group that were running as a church. And on the Holy Spirit evening of that Alpha course, not only did he give his life to the Lord, but his depression left him. He had got very depressed with the situations that he was in, and he was so happy and smiley, and as he got to know people in the church, he seemed such a happy person. And so everyone kind of knew him in those ways, but he still had Parkinson's. And to kind of cut a long story short, I was walking my old dog, not one of these two, the previous one we had, if anybody will remember him, Fritz, with a friend who was talking to me that one day, and he told me that his brother had just been also diagnosed with the same disease, with Parkinson's. And I said to him, I won't mention names, I'd met his brother, so I said, why don't I offer to pray for your brother? And then I said something that was incredibly cynical, but only I see it with reflection, and I said, but the trouble is, I've never even heard of anybody getting healed from Parkinson's. And the reason I say it's cynical is I look back now on what I was really saying. Because really what I was saying was, I'm happy to meet your brother and pray for him, because really it's an opportunity to take advantage of his vulnerability and try and persuade him to come along to church and make a commitment and all those sorts of things. And you can argue and say, well, that was good motives for eternity and all that sort of thing. But something in me knew it was taking advantage of the situation, because the reality was I wasn't expecting him to get healed from Parkinson's. That was the Saturday. And the Sunday at church, finished speaking, and I saw Dave starting to walk towards me, and he's crying. And that's unusual, because he's been such a happy person since his depression has left. And as he wanders over, I have this sinking feeling, and he kind of approaches me and says, Kristen, said, I'm really depressed. I saw the doctor early in the week. He said, I'm on the strongest medication I can have for this Parkinson's. There's nothing more they can do about it, and I just hate it. I don't want it. Will you pray for me? And as he said it, I knew, because I'd already analysed my thoughts the day before. I thought, I'm being asked to pray for something I have zero faith for in reality, and yet part of church kind of forces you into performance. So I did kind of, what you do in those situations. I looked around for someone who might have more faith than me, and spotted guy John Davis, who may watch, you think he's on Facebook, who got healed fantastically from ME. He'd been signed off work for about 4 years, and he went back after he got healed. Straight within 2 weeks of being healed, he was started his own gardening business, just to kind of prove how fit and healthy he was now. I've been watching the dogs for a while. I'm going to turn the camera around so you can get to look at me. Oops, hang on. There you go, making face-to-face and eye contact. So let's start heading up this way. So I looked for him. I thought, well, he'll have some faith. So I called him over while Dave is still speaking. And I talked to John afterwards. He said when he realised what I was about to ask him to pray for, he had about as much faith as I did, or perhaps even less. And so I thought, right, I better pray for Dave. But as I laid hands on him, I thought, what I'm about to pray for, I don't know. I'm really fake here. I don't believe this story. I don't think it's going to happen. I can tell myself I do, but in my heart, my response just yesterday to the same disease and illness said, I don't really think it. And so I'm a real believer, and this is one of a couple of events that really brought home to me the truth of that verse that says, faith comes by hearing. And so you see, because faith is not believing in something difficult, which is what I was trying to do, trying to believe in something difficult that I didn't, in one sense, believe in. Faith is a response to something you hear. It's something in the moment that you get from the Lord. And so I thought, I need to kind of pray. So I started praying some generic prayers, but inside I was praying different prayers. So about, Lord, you really love Dave. And as I'm laying hands on it, I felt the Lord saying to me, you should never have called him Shaky Dave. See? So that's what I felt I've heard. We should never have participated, because he'd introduced himself that way. It's the name he'd been called, and everyone in the church called him Shaky Dave. We were defining him by a condition that really he wanted nothing to do with, just been too afraid to articulate it until now. And so I thought, well, all I can do is respond to what I'm hearing. So I said, Dave, I need to apologise to you while we're praying. I said, I need to apologise to you that we've allowed you to be called Shaky Dave in the church. And he was still just kind of in that prayerful attitude. And then I found myself saying, in fact, I want to prophesy to you now that you will come to be known as Rock Solid Dave. And then obviously I felt I had to qualify it, because I didn't know what that would mean. So I said, because actually you're a really rock solid friend, But I had responded, you'll be known as Rock Solid Dave. And so when we prayed for him, and he was a bit weepy at the end and moved on. It was Wednesday that week I got a phone call from Dave. And since Monday, he'd woken up on Monday morning to make himself a cup of tea, and he hadn't spilt anything. And then he'd been walking with a stick for years, and he had a little dog, tiny little one that used to walk on a lead. He started walking the dog with his stick, and the dog started to pull, which is unusual. And it kind of started pulling him forwards, and he lifted his stick and started to trot after it. And after a second, he realised he was running, and he was running when you have Parkinson's and you're shaking so much. It's very, very difficult. And he ran round the whole of the walk journey, got home, was amazed, and found his arms weren't shaking, his legs weren't shaking. Well, I say they're not shaking, he had a tremble to them. But he'd had that before his Parkinson's. It's part of his background. And I mention it because I remember some cynical folks, and I want to be nice, I don't want to mention names, but kind of saying, well, he's not stopped shaking, has he? And I think, well, you don't understand. You don't understand, because the reality was he had. The shakes from his Parkinson's had gone. He shared with family and friends and so on and so forth. And he had no Parkinson's shaking for about 4 or 5 years. I put in the book as a little caveat, there was a situation that came a few years ago where he was diagnosed with cancer. He was just given a few months to live and sort of sent home because they couldn't do anything more for him. And at this stage, we sadly had parted from the church we'd been leading. It'd been a painful story, but I won't go into that. And so I picked up that he'd had this situation. I went to pray for him in his home, and we prayed for him. And the remarkable thing it was, he didn't die. He kept on going and going, and they didn't really know why. But during that period, the reason I'm saying it is his shaking did come back. The fear kind of crept in, and I'm not blaming anyone in this situation. I'm just saying it's the reality. But the funny thing is, because of his testimony, I always think of him now as rock solid Dave, and I think there are a lot of folks who still feel the same. And the thing I learned out of the situation, you see, is that it changed the idea of what faith is about for me. It's not about trying hard to believe for something that's difficult to believe for. It is somehow in that leaning in the Lord, you respond as he speaks to you. You should never have called him Shaky Dave. No, I need to confess that. So faith comes by hearing, but James puts it, but it's completed by, Abraham's faith was completed in his actions. It's not a work of law, it's an act of faith. They're different things, totally different. We take these small, tiny little actions, confessions, admitting something. These little seeds, like mustard seeds. Faith is like a mustard seed. It can just be a small thing that is a response to something we hear, and we lean into that, and the Lord does remarkable things through it. And it's not always exactly the way we think it should be, and I don't understand why years later, obviously the cancer finally did get to him, but he lived for a couple of years longer than he should have done, if I put it that way. On that diagnosis, and he'd lived for 4 to 5 years without shaking from Parkinson's. And all I can say, because I'm grieved that I didn't know. I really genuinely am. It's, having not been on there and not picked up, because the story is important to me. It's partly why I wanted to share it this morning. But it highlights something to me, which is faith is an exciting adventure. We don't always know with great certainty. We think we do, you know. And some of those that are the most, well, I'm going to pray for this, I'm going to pray for that, who are most certain. The trouble is, if you're most certain, well, I don't know, I'm not going to criticise. But what I do know is, the one thing I do know for certain is that when I pray with faith, i.e. leaning into something that I feel I've heard from the Lord, I see far more unusual, remarkable coincidences happen than when I don't. And it's not just that you pray, but you have to respond. You pray and respond in those small ways. And that is the heart, I think, of the journey we're called to. We pray, we feel something, and we respond to what we feel we think the Lord has said. I respond in faith to what I believe he's said by doing something small, and what we discover is he does the big thing beyond it. And so the quality of Dave's testimony, the quality of Dave's life is far greater, even though not everything was perfect, and even though it seems in the end the cancer, which is a horrible thing to have, someone speaking with my own experience of it, finally got him. But as we were touching on yesterday, we have a faith that is despite the bad things that happen to us, despite the painful things that we go through, not because we haven't gone through those things, and none of us avoid the consequence of death. We all finish there. It's better to be in the house of mourning, because remember it, because that's where we're going to be one day. So make the most of the life we've had and live it by faith. So I've probably taken more time than I thought this morning, but I wanted to give that kind of little testimony to the man that used to be known around town, and we also knew him in church as Shaky Dave. But in reality, he's rock solid, and he's now with the Lord. And we'll be able to share and smile about the story and the journeys that we go through, because we leaned into some moments by faith together, and we sowed something that has some eternal meaning. So I just want to encourage us all. We do that day by day as we encounter the situations that we're in. We don't just say, I know what's the right solution here and I'm going to believe hard for it. What we do is we lean into the Lord. We try and hear something, and we try and respond to what we're hearing. We speak it out. We act as if it's true. In those small ways, those mustard seeds produce fruit. And even the birds of the trees, the birds of the field can nest in their branches. That's a great kind of testimony. So I'm just going to quickly turn the camera around for those who need your dog fixed this morning. They're wandering across this field here. There they are. So as I said, next week I probably won't be doing these Crumbs under the table dog walk videos, as I'm down at Ashburnham, but my hope is to record some bits and get them online afterwards. So please keep looking out for them. Please let me know again if you're watching these. In particular, the best way from my point of view is still if you subscribe. Although I have the subscribers I need now to have a proper URL on my YouTube channel, but it's great if you can do that. But yeah, the key thing is knowing. It's always nice to know who's getting something out of these times and get the conversations going. So talk to you in a couple of days, if not, well, no. Mate, I'll probably be here tomorrow. Actually, I'll be here tomorrow before I shoot off to Ashburnham. So we'll be in touch. Okay. Hello, Banjo. You want to come and say hello? You want to come and say hello? Say hello to your fans. Oh, and Luna too.